The sun blazed mercilessly over the cracked, arid expanse of the desert, a land so desolate it seemed to swallow hope itself. In the heart of this unforgiving wilderness stood a crumbling, deserted house, its warped wooden walls groaning under the weight of time and neglect. Inside, a young woman named Lila lay sprawled on the dusty floor, her breaths shallow, her body trembling from exhaustion and dehydration. Her wrists were raw from the ropes that had bound her, now frayed and discarded by the men who'd left her here to die, labor traffickers who saw her as nothing more than a disposable tool. Tears streaked her dirt-smudged face as she whispered a prayer, her voice barely audible, "Please, someone, help me." The silence of the house answered her, cold and indifferent, until the faint sound of hoofbeats echoed in the distance, a flicker of life in a world that had abandoned her. Lila was only 22, a bright-eyed girl from a small Midwestern town, lured to the Southwest with promises of honest work and a better life. She dreamed of sending money home to her mother, who struggled to keep the family farm afloat after her father's sudden death. But the job, picking fruit in the blazing fields, turned into a nightmare. The men who hired her were ruthless, part of a labor trafficking ring that exploited desperate workers, chaining them with debt and fear. Lila had worked 18-hour days, her hands blistered, her body aching, until she dared to speak up, demanding fair pay and rest. That defiance cost her everything. They dragged her to this abandoned house, a forgotten relic in the desert, and left her with no food, no water, and no hope, a cruel punishment for her courage. The heat pressed down on Lila like a physical weight, her lips cracked and bleeding, her vision blurring as the hours bled into days. She thought of her mother, her younger brother, the farm they'd lose without her help. Regret gnawed at her. Why had she trusted those men? Why hadn't she run sooner? Her mind drifted, memories of her childhood mingling with the delirium of thirst, running through green fields, laughing with her brother, her mother's warm embrace. Now, all she had was this rotting house, its walls whispering of decay, and the relentless sun stealing her strength. She closed her eyes, resigning herself to the end, when the sound of those hoofbeats grew louder, steady and purposeful, cutting through the haze of her despair. Across the desert, a lone figure rode with the grace of a predator, his silhouette sharp against the fiery horizon. His name was Tala, a Cheyenne warrior, a man of 30 whose life had been shaped by loss and resilience. His dark eyes scanned the land, a place his people had once roamed freely before settlers and greed carved it into fragments. Tala's family had been torn apart in his youth, his father killed in a skirmish, his sister lost to illness brought by outsiders. He'd grown up learning the old ways from his grandfather, a medicine man, blending survival skills with a deep respect for the earth. Now, he roamed these lands, a quiet protector, seeking signs of trouble, guided by an instinct he couldn't explain. That instinct led him to the deserted house, a place he'd passed many times, but today, something felt different, a pull, a whisper on the wind. Tala dismounted his horse, a sturdy bay named Kui, and approached the house, his moccasins silent on the parched ground. The air was thick with heat, but a faint sound, a weak, broken sob reached his ears. He pushed open the splintered door, his heart clenching at the sight of Lila, crumpled like a broken doll, her dark hair matted with sweat and dust. Her eyes fluttered open, wide with fear, then hope, as she rasped, "Help, please." Tala knelt beside her, his strong hands gentle as he lifted her head, offering water from the canteen at his side. "You're safe now," he said, his voice low and steady, a promise carved in stone. But as he looked at her, he saw not just a girl in need, but a mirror of his own pain, abandonment, betrayal, the cruelty of a world that took and took. The challenges began immediately. Lila was weak, barely able to stand, her body ravaged by days without food or water. Tala knew the desert was no place for healing, the nearest town was miles away, and the sun showed no mercy. He fashioned a makeshift stretcher from the blanket on Kui's back, securing Lila gently, her frail form trembling against the fabric. As he led the horse across the dunes, the first hurdle emerged, a sudden sandstorm, a howling beast of wind and grit that blinded them and spooked Kui. Tala shielded Lila with his body, whispering to the horse in Cheyenne, calming it with a steady hand, his resolve unshaken. Lila, drifting in and out of consciousness, clung to his voice, a lifeline in the chaos, her fear easing at the strength in his tone. The storm passed, but the journey was far from over. Night fell, bringing a bone-chilling cold that contrasted the day's heat. Tala built a small fire, wrapping Lila in his own jacket, his dark eyes scanning the darkness for predators, both animal and human. He knew the traffickers might return, their greed and cruelty a constant threat. Sure enough, as dawn broke, hoofbeats thundered in the distance, not one rider, but three. The men who'd left Lila to die had come back, perhaps to ensure her silence. Tala's heart raced, but his training took over. He hid Lila behind a cluster of rocks, her weak hand grasping his as she whispered, "Don't leave me." He squeezed back, a silent vow, then faced the men, his bow drawn, arrows flying with deadly precision. Two fell, wounded, the third fleeing into the desert, a coward undone by Tala's quiet fury. The physical trials were grueling, but the emotional ones cut deeper. Lila, as she gained strength from Tala's care, water, dried meat, and soothing herbs, began to open up, her voice trembling as she spoke of her family, her shame at falling into the trafficker's trap. "I just wanted to help them," she sobbed, tears falling as Tala listened, his silence a comfort. He understood her pain, the weight of responsibility, the sting of betrayal. In turn, he shared his own story, his family's losses, his fight to honor his people's legacy. Their bond grew, two broken souls finding solace in shared scars, but trust was a fragile thing. Lila feared Tala would abandon her, as others had. Tala wrestled with his own doubts, wondering if he could truly protect her in a world so cruel. Days turned into a week, the journey a test of endurance. Water ran low, and Tala hunted jackrabbits, rationing every drop, his focus unwavering. Lila, growing stronger, began to help, gathering dry brush for the fire, her hands shaking but determined. One night, under a sky ablaze with stars, she looked at Tala, his face lit by the flames, and said, "You didn't have to save me." "Why did you?" He paused, then replied, "Because no one should be left to die. Because I've seen too many lost to this land, and I couldn't let it take you too." Her eyes shone with gratitude, and in that moment, something shifted, a connection deeper than survival, a spark of hope in the darkness. The final challenge came as they neared a small frontier town, a place of rough saloons and wary townsfolk. Tala knew the risks, a native man and a battered girl would draw suspicion, and the traffickers' reach might extend here. Sure enough, whispers followed them, and a corrupt sheriff, likely paid by the traffickers, confronted them, demanding Lila's return. Tala stood tall, his presence commanding, while Lila, summoning courage she didn't know she had, spoke out, her voice steady, "I'm not property. I'm free, and he saved me." The townsfolk, moved by her plea and Tala's quiet strength, turned on the sheriff, forcing him to back down. It was a victory, hard one, but the scars of their ordeal lingered. In the end, Tala brought Lila to a safe haven, a mission run by kind-hearted women who promised to help her get home. As they stood at the edge of town, Lila turned to Tala, her eyes brimming with tears. "You gave me my life back," she said, grasping his hand. He nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "You gave me purpose," he replied. They parted, not as strangers, but as two souls forever changed, bound by a journey through a desert of despair to a dawn of hope. Lila would return to her family, her spirit unbroken, ready to fight for others like her. Tala rode back into the wilderness, a warrior renewed, knowing he'd honored his people by saving one life. And so, in a world that left a labor girl to die, a Cheyenne warrior proved that courage and compassion could triumph, a beacon of light in the darkest of places. For anyone watching, the message is clear: no matter how vast the desert, how deep the pain, one act of bravery, one hand extended in kindness, can change everything. Hold fast to hope, fight for the forgotten, and never let the light go out.